Linear logic. These are the types of problems that require you to understand linear equations, which are y equals mx plus b, where the pattern of change is either adding or subtracting the same number every single time. But the SAT loves to talk to you guys about x and y intercepts. And guys, intercept just means when you intersect something or when you hit something. So if we have a linear equation, which is just a straight line, usually it's going to hit the y-axis in a spot, and it's also going to hit the x-axis in a spot. And the SAT really likes to use this and ask you what the values are. And the most important things is when we talk about the coordinate grid, if you're on the x-axis, then that means you're moving somewhere for x, which means that the y value is always going to be 0. And just like whenever you're on the y-axis, you're going up and down for y values, but your x is always going to be 0. So you're always going to see a pattern. If x is 0, you automatically have a y-intercept where it hits this line. If y is 0, you automatically have an x-intercept where it hits this horizontal line instead. So the most important things we need to remember for x-intercepts, for every single x-intercept answer, y is always 0. It's always x as some answer where y is always 0. And vice versa. For y-intercepts, x is always 0. Make sure to get these in your notes every single time. Whenever y is 0, you have an x-intercept. Whenever x is 0, you have a y-intercept. So now if we're given an equation like this, y equals 2x minus 8, and you're asked to find the x and y-intercept, well, we just have to remember what is always true. If you want the x-intercept, y is always 0. So if we plug in 0 for y and solve it, we'll get our x-intercept. If you ever want the y-intercept, x is always 0. So we'll plug in 0 for x, and our answer will be the y-intercept instead. So we're going to do this 2 at a time. I'm going to use that same equation, y equals 2x minus 8. Now I'm going to go ahead and write it down twice. One for the x-intercept, one for the y-intercept. For the x-intercept, y is always 0. So I'm going to take that 0 and go plug it in for y up there. Since I just plugged in that 0 for y, when I solve this, we'll have the x-intercept. I need to remove the 2 and the negative 8. Always move the number without the variable first. Opposite, since I'm going across the equal mark. We'll have 8 equals 2x. 8 plus 8 is negative 8 plus 8 is 0. 2x, whenever the number and letter are attached, that's 2 times some number x to get 8. The opposite is division. And we get that our x is 4. So the x-intercept is at 4, comma, and whatever we plug in for the y, which had to be 0. When you have an x-intercept, we're going to have a number for x, and y will always be 0. Now let's flip it. The y-intercept, x is always 0. So I'm going to take that 0 for x and go plug it in for x instead now. I always like to use parentheses. Since I plugged in 0 for x, my answer is going to be the y-intercept. 2 times 0 is 0. And so now I'm left with negative 8. So my y-intercept is negative 8. Whenever you want the y-intercept, your y will be a number and x will be a 0. Sometimes your linear equation will look like this instead. 5x plus 4y equals 40. Where it's still just regular x and regular y, the way you find the intercepts will be just like the other problem. I'm going to make 2 little spots for myself. 5x plus 4y equals 40. So space for my x-intercept work. And space for my y-intercept work. Now if you want the x-intercept, We want an actual answer for x, so the other idea needs to be 0. Y is always 0 if you want that x-intercept. So I'm going to plug that 0 in for y up here. And now we'll solve. 4 times 0 is 0. 5x is 5 times some number x to get 40. The opposite of multiplication is division. So x is equal to 8. So your x-intercept is 8, 0. It's always x, y. Now for the y-intercept, since we want an actual answer for y, the other letter will be 0. X is always 0 when you look for that y-intercept. So I'm going to go take that x for 0 and plug it in. Five times 0 is 0. 4y is 4 times some number y to get us to 40. The opposite of multiplying is division. We'll get that y is 10. So the y-intercept is 0, 10.